In this module, we're exploring monetary policy. That's the other primary tool that the government uses. Monetary policy is the manipulation of the money supply to force outcomes to be more favorable. Monetary policy. So here, the money supply can be pushed up or pushed down in order to change outcomes. And I won't go through all these steps, but when the money supply is changed, and we'll talk about this when we discuss the ISLM model, that affects the interest rates. When there's more money in circulation, interest rates go down. Each dollar floating around is worth less. And when the money supply goes down, then interest rates go up. Each dollar in circulation is worth more. So interest rates can fluctuate. The connection to the AE model that we get is that interest rates affect investment. And I hope that makes sense to you. If you're thinking about building a strip mall, for example, and you go to the bank to borrow the money to do it, the bank might tell you, well, you're going to have to pay 10% interest in order to do that, and so you might decide not to do it because that's a lot. But if you went to the bank a week later and they told you things have changed and now the interest rate's only 2%, you might decide to do it, and that creates a lot of economic activity. So this lets us model that, all right? So here's before, and we know we have C plus I plus G plus NX. That's our 4 pieces per the expenditure approach. We stack them all up like a sandwich, and we draw a line across the top, and that gives us our AE curve. And wherever that AE curve crosses the 45-degree line, that's macroeconomic equilibrium. In this case, it's going to be $100 billion. What if a government said, that's not big enough, $100 billion is too small, and as a result, we have a bunch of unemployment, or people are unhappy, whatever it is. So we want to get this number bigger. Let's use monetary policy to do that. We'll increase the money supply, the case that I'm drawing here, which will then lower interest rates. So interest rates go from 10% to 2%. As a result, you and a bunch of other people decide to build strip malls and apartment buildings and who knows what. So investment, right, all that stuff's in investment, strip malls and apartment buildings and houses, that's all there. So investment goes up. So before monetary policy, that's how big investment was. Maybe that's $30 billion or whatever that number is. Now that interest rates are lower, that number has to get bigger. So this slice of the sandwich gets taller. So instead of drawing it right here where it was before, let's make it a lot bigger. I'm going to put it right there. Use your imagination that that's a straight line. And from there, we're going to leave everything else the same. So G is that tall, so let's put G on top of that. We have to aggregate our expenditures, C plus I plus G plus NX. NX is that tall, so let's put NX on top of that, and there's NX, and then consumption, we know has that positive slope. Some of these have to have a positive slope, so let's put that there, and from there we lay our aggregate expenditure curve on top of that whole sandwich, right? Aggregate expenditure looks like that, and then here's your new point of macroeconomic equilibrium. And I'm sure you can tell from the perspective of the camera, I hope that you can, that's further out, right? Here's $100 billion, that's pretty close, and then this is more, so maybe that's $130 billion. And of course, that's going to be equilibrium because we're on the 45-degree line, so there's no changes in inventories that are going to influence that. We're going to settle in on that spot, and that spot's higher. This was the goal. This is how our governments manipulate economic outcomes, or at least one of their primary tools. They issue more money circulates around. When they do that, the money supply increases. When they increase the money supply, interest rates fall, which causes investment to go up. And then, bam, that piece gets taller, like that. Look how tall that piece is. When that piece gets taller, it pushes the whole sandwich up. The AE line, which sits on top of this thing, floats up. And when it floats up, the point of intersection with the 45-degree line drifts out. Here's drifted all the way out to here, and we settle in at a new level of real GDP.